And I was like, hey, this has got to change. Did try to interact with my family about it, but uh, that like at the end of the day, the truth is that you have to kind of go through it yourself. You don't. They can only do so much. They can only kind of help you so much or recommend so much because they don't know what you're experiencing, what you're feeling.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm really connecting with you right now. So yeah, just go on.
So kind of went into my shell there, and then the only place that I would find solace was during training.
Training.
And uh, and then eventually, like 2 years into the space, 2 years into this particular job that I did, uh, I just there was a switch. It's like people around me encouraged me at the time. Few people encouraged, hey, why don't you start? Why don't you think about starting coaching? It was just like an initiator, small. I barely needed it.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into it. Like, how's your family coping right now with COVID, with everything going on? I know that India's kind of has been hit a lot harder than other countries because don't you feel like the health system is quite different in India? Like you don't know who has COVID. People
Yeah,
don't know.
it's and at the end of the day, it's all questionable, right? Like at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do when you have like 1.2, almost 1.3 billion people.
Wow.
How many can you end up? And
Hmm.
that kind of gets you thinking, sets the tone apart that we're just different. We're
Okay.
different with respect to day-to-day life. We're different with respect to how we're going to kind of cope up with it and what we're going to do.
Yeah.
The challenges, I think, this is purely from my experience from nationwide standpoint, will be far greater with respect to the economics of it,
Hmm.
like economic repercussions, more than just like the public health emergency that it would be.
Okay.
Like initial phases of lockdown, a lot of contract workers, uh, and this is like speaking right at the bottom of the mm, income stratas, right? And you're talking about them, they lost their jobs, people kind of moved states, different parts of the cities, getting back home was difficult. It's
Hmm.
just it's just different. Like it's just tough.
Yeah.
And those are the differences, and they're very stark differences in the way how we live our lives and the way how a lot of people around us might be living their lives.
Hmm.
So yeah, it hits a little harder, right? We're just built different as a country.
Yeah. Like like in France, you can just go test it. Everyone can go test it. And in India, I'm just like, they don't know, they can't provide all
It's
that.
1,200 rupees, which is still a lot cheaper than a lot of countries, but at
Twelve
the end of the day,
hundred.
1,200.
1200.
Yes, 1,200 rupees. And that's still not going to kind of cut it out for a lot of people. And those are through the private labs, and then they have testing camps that they set up for people, but those can only cover so many people at a time, and you have to stand for hours for the free testing aspect of it. And it's just how it is. You can't possibly test everyone.
And
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
As far as like the health crisis of COVID is concerned, you can't really put a number on it. Uh, there were far greater issues in place, but just like it is worldwide, I think the actress category of people are the ones who are, yeah, they find it tougher to cope up with it. Fortunately, coming back to like my family, fortunate or
Hmm.
unfortunate, uh, we haven't yet experienced anyone getting COVID yet. So we've been kind of
Okay,
sheltered,
it's good.
but we do understand that it could possibly be just a time game, and it's just a matter of time. Because and we kind of, it's kind of like philosophical, right? It's the same as life. Like you kind of do the best you can,
Hmm.
but at the end of it, you don't know when you'll get it. So, and when you
Yeah.
do, you,
If you get dealt the card, you get dealt the card. You can't really do anything about it.
but you still gotta, you can't be like, hey, I'm gonna get it anyway. Let me go out, mask off, fuck it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
don't you think that you, because you're in the health and fitness industry, you have a lot more knowledge on how you can help your family, against COVID, like eat better, better immunity, exercise.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You raised that as far as your family is concerned, you kind of think of the first level of contact that you have is with your family. And how do you kind of like, people have often asked, right? Sometimes we do, as coaches, we do find it easier to coach people who aren't that close to us as far as health is
Yes.
concerned. There's no emotional, like the emotional connect is not that deep. They haven't seen, we don't have each other's biases, we don't know blind spots, and you can't really kind of get into the other person's life to that extent. So it's easier to coach a person who you've probably not spent your life growing up around. But that said, what has really changed is you kind of do the whole lead by example bit. So you do the best you can, and then the family kind of follows through on it. I
Okay.
have personally found that to be one of the easier ways to kind of, what would you say, coach fitness or coach health to my family
Hmm.
directly. I do kind of coach my brother uh,
Yeah.
in a capacity, but as far as my parents or my folks are concerned, it's more about let them find their way of being active the best they can, not really kind of saying, hey, this is the right way to do it or this is the wrong way to do it. Just
Yes.
kind of them finding their way around it, and do the basics, right? Eat your vegetables,
Yeah.
eat protein, keep moving around. uh,
That's a really good point, because I see a lot of coaches out there. They're like, you need to run, you need to bike, you need to do this. Sometimes for people, just walking is enough, depending
yeah,
on who they are. Just
yeah.
just going on a 30-minute walk can be more beneficial than going on a 15-minute run, which then they'll have joint pains and all these things. So
I'm 100% on it with that one. Like my father, he started cycling throughout this entire pandemic, and he's
yes.
built up on that. My mother has just started with something as simple as, of course, she's very active in her day-to-day activities, but more than that, just trying to get in a little more protein and be more mindful of that.
Hmm.
We started getting in as a family the past couple of months, is getting in vegetables in a meal as simple as breakfast, right? So
Yeah.
with vegetables at breakfast, and that was just a
So what
shift.
do what do vegetables do in terms of immunity? Putting you on the spot.
I mean, you can't really pinpoint on it, but hopefully, like just better metabolic health, right? Uh,
Yeah.
More fiber, and just make sure you're getting in. Uh, you're kind of just preventing yourself from overeating the not so beneficial shit through the day.
Yes.
Kind of
And
like kind of
micronutrients, man. Yeah.
Yeah, micronutrients. But like you kind of think of it like you're full on vegetables, and then you're less likely to probably eat like 3 to 4 biscuits when they're there in the pantry, right? And
Yeah.
you're full, just that full. So yeah, just small steps, the basic stuff.
I mean, when you look at people, like just observing people, like I've seen in my family, like if they have a bad diet, they fall ill very easily, very easily. Like
Yeah,
it's for people that aren't eating well, that have bad habits, that go McDonald's every day, their immune system is so poor. And I just feel like if the government should educate people on one thing, is eating well and working out, that would solve so many problems.
that's a part of like the long-term vision, man. Like getting more people educated on that front. That's kind of like the driving motive behind. Maybe not when I initially got into the space and how I got to it, but the vision, if you had to say it, is
Hmm.
educate or touch as many people as possible with respect to like better nutrition and uh,
Yeah,
uh,
but before we get into how you got into the space, I have a question. It just popped into my head. It's,
yeah.
what do you think of the Indian diet, of the standard Indian diet? What do you think of it?
I actually feel that this also becomes extremely diverse as a diet, as a practice. I've lived in like a bunch of different places, and that kind of changed my perspective on the standard Indian diet. Uh, I think what they have like out there on the in the Western civilization, or what they think of it to be as the Indian diet, is also not accurate, because I feel like India is so diverse. The end
Hmm.
kind of food people end up eating is so different region to region. Uh,
Okay.
like growing up in Varanasi, we ate a little differently. In the initial years, the formative years, very young. Then we kind of moved to Delhi. And I'm not saying my eating practices were the best growing up, but you kind of educated yourself along as you learned more. We just didn't have as many
Hmm.
resources. Uh, you move to somewhere like Bangalore in the south, and within like Bangalore, which is Karnataka, or you look at Tamil Nadu, or you look at Andhra Pradesh, and then you look at Kerala, they have different food habits, right? Like
Hmm.
Kerala being on the coast, they end up eating more seafood. So they end up
Yeah.
getting access to some beef or some meat, some form of meat. So you end up consuming more protein in your food. Uh,
Ah.
but from a general standpoint, the Indian diet is more biased towards the current Indian diet, as I'd like to call it, is more biased towards a very high uh, carbohydrate and fat base, right? Uh,
Yeah. But if you
low
look at like
on.
the ancestor, if you look at the ancestral Indian culture, they were
Yeah,
moving a lot. They were moving a lot, you
it
know.
was actually
So
fantastic. You can actually kind of go back into it and see, hey, it's not like our nutrition practices were like this. It kind of just evolution led us to it's the whole supermarket dilemma, right?
yeah,
You're not farming any longer. You're not moving as much. You're probably
yeah,
continuing to eat what you ate back then, or what you thought people should eat back then. But if you kind of look at like, at least from the Ayurveda standpoint, which a lot of people say would be the original or one of the roots of the Indian ways of eating, it was very basic, right? And you kind of took to like fruits, vegetables, grains. So it was
yeah,
fairly balanced. And you may not have eaten as much protein, but you were getting some plant-based proteins, and then you were getting like some some sources of fat and some sources of carbohydrates from your lentils and your vegetables and fruits. And it was a very basic nutrition habit. The fried foods and the fast food culture came a lot later. It was more commercialized. So
yeah.
yeah,
The
unfortunately,
thing,
yeah,
yeah,
like unfortunately though, just like other places, that does have easier access. And unfortunately, like when it comes down to the pocket and choosing to feed yourself versus not eating anything at all, people will kind of reach out to food rather than not eating anything at all, because you got
mm,
to eat something, right? And if the not so favorable food is going to be accessible, uh, that is going to become an issue, right? Like
yeah,
we don't encourage, or we don't kind of seeing habits or behaviors where people are reaching out to things, something as simple as fruits for a snack, right? They'll probably reach out to
yeah.
what's available. So yeah, like that's the Indian diet. uh,
I do feel though now in this time, I think people's choices of food is influenced by the amount of stress they have. Like personally, I'm gonna be open about it. Like if I feel a little more stressed, I'm gonna binge more, you know?
yeah,
And I think a lot of people do that, but they don't know they do that. Like I know I do that and I accept it, it's fine. And I work around it. But a lot of people don't know they do that. Like after finishing a day's work, it's been a stressful day. Oh, I just want some McDonald's, I'm just gonna go to that drive-through. And
Yeah, like kind of think of it, and then like people people often hear or they mention uh, that I put on a couple of kilos because of stress, right? You put on a couple of
mm,
kilos because of stress. It's maybe more the stress eating aspect of it, right? It's not just like the stress part of it itself is going to make you put on the weight.
mm,
Uh, like weight by itself might be like lower order. It might be causing more issues on an internal level, but like that's the metric people use. Uh, when you're emotional, when you're unhappy, you've had a bad day, you had a hard day, or for that matter, you haven't slept enough,
mm,
you're more likely to reach out to foods which are easily available and maybe even hyper palatable or easy to consume more of.
yeah,
Just think of it. You're hungry, you've had a hard day at work, you probably got pulled into multiple meetings and got into a bit of a bittersweet argument with your boss,
yeah,
and you're more likely to go to the pantry and say, "Hey, let me pick up a pack of biscuits, get something to eat,"
mm,
rather than be like, "Hey, let me eat a salad or let me eat some chicken and vegetables."
yeah. So if I
Uh,
was your client and I was dealing with this, what would you advise me?
I think first thing I would just help you build awareness by like some by a practice just as simple as journaling your food, right? Uh, just
Yeah.
writing, just being aware of it. Let's put the food down on the sheet. Let's see what happens. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, right? Let's know what we're doing, and then kind of
Mm,
identify it. Is it a behavior or is it more like a in the moment response? Because everybody can have like a bad day, but is it a
mm,
behavioral thing? Is it something that's there like more often than not? You kind of repeat it very
yeah.
frequently, or is it something that's just one off and kind of begin there? And then you got to understand that like it's not as simple as ripping the band-aid. So the fixed part of it, well, on the face of it, let's say someone is eating a McDonald's burger, like you just mentioned, because they have access to McDonald's. On the face of it, it's just, hey, stop eating McDonald's.
Mm,
But you go a level deeper, and this is where like the true aspect of really working through with it with a client is you can't do it for them. You have to kind of show them the way. But for that, they also need to dig deeper. You're not actually
mm.
asking them to solve just their food habits. You're also asking them to look into their life and see what's causing them that stress in the first place.
Like therapy.
Exactly. There's a mental aspect to it, right? Like if you are under a high stress environment, then let's see how we can work on a high stress part and resolve for that
Mm,
while making you aware that you could be making better choices than what you're making right now. They don't have to be perfect, they could be one step better. It's just that one step better approach. Like if I can give you a homemade burger instead of McDonald's, or I can give you a home cooked meal, something that you prepared,
mm,
you're already a couple of steps ahead.
okay.
Or if from McDonald's I shifted you to something as simple as, hey, you're hungry in the moment, eat a banana. Uh, that's a win, right? And at a deeper level, you're just trying to kind of help them understand what's causing that stress in the first place. So behaviors are like difficult and long term to fix, which is why when you're building a new habit of fitness or you're trying to work on your health, you have to think a little longer term rather than the whole I want to get fit in
Mm,
4 weeks. But the getting fit in 4 weeks bit is probably done by a lot of people who are seasoned athletes or they practiced professionals who probably kind of fell off the wagon. They might be rehabbing from something, they might be off season, and they kind of get fit in 4 weeks, and that probably works for them because uh,
yeah.
from a sports standpoint, you work on sporting life cycles, right? Training cycles.
Mm-hmm.
From a health standpoint,
Periodization.
yeah, from a health standpoint, you can't really tell a person, hey, reduce your stressors. I don't care. Stop being a banker, right? Let's say you're
Yeah.
an investment banker and you got stress, or you're working on a deal and that deal is forcing you to eat shitty, or you need a glass of wine at the end of the day. I'm not going to say, hey, stop doing your job. He's not going to be able to pay their bills, or she's not going to be able to pay her bills, right? So
Mm,
it's really not that simple, even though it is. We know the solution is eating better foods, but it's not, right? Like you're working on more. And
yeah.
yeah, so it's just that. I think that,
Eating better foods is one part of the equation, yes. But I think
yeah, I was
balance,
taking the whole McDonald's thing into aspect and just keep drawing
yeah,
that point and staying very specific to that. And then
yeah,
obviously the overall equation would be, hey, I hope you're getting in, like, let's get them to sleep 7 to 8 hours. Let's get them to get at least some sunshine. If they're not getting any sunshine, hey, go stand in the sun once in a month if you're not even doing that right now,
mm,
right? And if you're not moving at all, at least start walking to your car every day. Park your car
yeah,
2, 3 blocks away, right? Start walking to your car right now. And that's baby steps, right? 2 to 3 minutes a day,
yeah.
10 minutes a day, just intentional stuff. You know you're doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
building from there. The same drip, 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 drip approach by and by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The like
About
I've
that.
got a very big problem with like being called a personal trainer or like I like the word coach, but like personal trainer or fitness trainer or I just don't like it. Or even a therapist, why call someone a therapist? They're not, it's more than that, like what we are doing is more than just, making you fit. We're changing people's lives, don't you think?
I see where you're coming from, but at the end of the day, I also feel that the responsibility or the onus for making that segregation or helping people understand that is
Hmm.
ours too. Like at the end of the day, the client who's paying maybe 1,000 rupees or $1,000, I don't know, whatever, you can take any currency into place, right? Uh, if they're paying X amount of money to a person to get them fit and healthy, they don't know what route the coach is going to take if they've not worked with them
Hmm.
before. They can kind of only maybe hope that the ideologies match. And then uh, it really comes down to the equation between it's coach to coach, right? Specific. What if they do get access to a personal trainer? What if that's the best they can do? They're still doing the best they
Hmm.
can, right? So it's really I will take the tag or the notion of being called a personal trainer, provided I can deliver that health or fitness to them.
Yeah. But my
So
my
I think
prob my my,
for the
my
work,
problem is people people um how do I put this? People prefer 4-week plans and a person who looks good and um posts all these transformation pics and or I'm lean, I'm ripped, all these things on social media like 4-week plan. This is the transformation of my client in 4 weeks. Like I don't like that because that person is not putting focus and energy into building better habits, building better behaviors, what we're talking about. And I just feel like people like us who actually value behavior, emotions, all these other aspects rather than just physical change. I don't care if physically you haven't changed that much, but you need to look at the other things. Are you feeling better? Are you sleeping better? Are you eating better? Are you more happy towards the people around you? Those things are more important to me than looking good.
that's a really good, like you raise a really good point about it,
Yeah.
but this is where the understanding and the acceptance fact of it comes in, is that first and foremost, there is some overlap between the industries we are in. We're in health and fitness or wellness, right? But we're also, to a huge extent, in the beauty industry, right? uh, a big part of people beginning where they want to move towards is it begins with themselves, and it begins with kind of giving them some form of confidence. Like think about like teenagers who start going to the gym. They probably have body image issues. Think about people who've probably been in the overfat category. Yes, they have health issues and they want to feel good and they want to feel better, but like they also have body image issues. So if that coach or that trainer is giving them an ideal or a goal of this person looks good naked, right? And they look up to that person, they buy into it. They buy into the visuals of it. And there is nothing wrong on the client's part. The client does not know, right? But it comes down to what is the coach giving them, right? What is the coach doing from that standpoint? And that comes down to their reason. Like it comes down to such, it's so individualistic, right? It comes down to why are they doing this? Because the client will be impressionable based on what the coach dictates to them, or they build that relationship and they kind of figure it out from there. But at the end of the day, the first place where the client begins is maybe they just want to look good naked, and then over a period of time it kind of moves in the direction of okay, it's more than this. But that's a journey, right? Like that's the whole evolution of health or fitness in terms of where people want to head, and that's going to look really different. Maybe some people end up stopping at that entry point. Maybe some people want to achieve more and then kind of move towards self-sustainability or being self-autonomous. And but the fact, as far as like the whole concept of, we can probably choose not to like that aspect of fitness or health or our industry, but that is the truth. It is up to us to educate the client that we can deliver them health, right? Or we can deliver them fitness. But as far as the whole concept of, a person looks a certain way and you want to train with them a certain way, well, yeah, because the visual aspect of it kind of sells, right? That's, in many cases, it ends up becoming a badge for people to wear. People don't question it the right People don't probably end up questioning it the right way. They probably, and a big part of it is that athlete culture that's been there or that's promoted. It's not always necessary that the better athlete will always be the better coach for you. It's not
Okay.
always necessary. I'm not saying there aren't good athletes that are great coaches, but I'm just saying that people need to see better. So that's just an education. That's just kind of, it's up to us to educate them. Right? So we'll have to kind of shift out of that box. And I'm also dealing with it. There are days where I get as frustrated. It's like, okay, I question
Yeah.
myself. Why does it have to be this way? And why can't it be this way? But we kind of pick, and at the end of the day, there will always be that client that sees eye to eye with what we have to do or what we have to say. And those are the people that we have to educate. So that's how I see it, as like there will be people who want to train with people who look a certain way. There will be people who want to train with people who prescribe something else. And then there will be people who are following what we have to say, what we have to do. Our responsibility is just to put our dialogue out there so that people can reach out to us. And if someone is starting off on a not so great or ideal track, that is also up to us to kind of educate them on it. If a person has grown up seeing, being in an environment where they're constantly told by people, you look a certain way, you need to look a certain way, or get fit, or uh, you're not healthy just because a person's weight is an issue, or you can't be on ABC team because you're not athletic or you don't look athletic, then they will believe that. And the truth is, like, generation over generation or years over years, it's kind of got drilled into their systems. So they do perceive health with their eyes. They do think that uh, the six pack, let's call it the six pack is the ideal to health or fitness, right?
Yeah.
Which might not
It's
necessarily always be true, but that's there.
yeah,
So I
it's
it's a
tough,
perspective.
because growing up, yeah, I had that before CrossFit even existed. When I actually started going to the gym, like it was all based on looks. Even my gym trainer, he was like, "That's how we need to look. That's how I will make you look." And
And
I got
that
so
was actually to do with people before them. They learned that from those people, right? Like
yeah,
your gym trainer probably got that from somewhere else back in, yeah. So that's there, right? And
yeah,
that was there. Like I remember like trying out on the school basketball team earlier on in my life, and at that point in time, it was hard because then I was an out of shape kid, but I didn't have access to better nutrition, or uh, I didn't know any better, so I
mm,
didn't know what it took to get there. But
yeah,
you could say like from that moment onwards, where I stepped onto the court, I've pretty much been on on a journey to kind of educate myself about it. So what,
mm,
2006, 2007 is 2006 is when I started playing, and 2020, 14 years in. And the thing is that that's where it began for me, right? It started out there as early as that. And there were a lot of failures along the way. And I'm still finding them. Like I still fail multiple times. People think that it's easy for you, or they look at you and they end up drawing the wrong comparisons. Well,
mm,
no, like I did kind of fail for 6 to 8 years with fitness or figuring it out before I came to CrossFit. And even at CrossFit, I probably failed for the first 2 to 3 years. Like
yeah,
in my own capacity, right? It took a lot longer than we give credit for what we see in front of us. So we
yeah,
don't really look at what goes into. So yeah, it's just like it's what we see around us and we end up believing that, right? Like I don't
yeah.
really blame anyone for that. So, and with the access of Instagram or other
Oh,
media
that's another.
platform,
That's a whole other
like I don't go
conversation.
into that rabbit hole, but the truth is that like it can be used for so many things which could be useful. I'm not saying it is, but it could be used for so many more things, right?
Mm,
So I'm not saying that the people out there who are doing there are people who are out there who are doing a brilliant job of putting out some amazing content and some amazing philosophies on fitness or what our
yeah,
perspective of it is anyways. And then there'll be people who are putting on things that we may not agree with, and I guess we don't have to agree with, right? Such as
yeah,
becomes such a subjective issue. At the end of the day, the truth is that as long as it's not hurting someone and they can continue to do it for probably a lifetime, and they stick or hold on to fitness, or they begin their journey with fitness or health as well, that's a good place to be.
mm,
So we do need more people contributing to fitness or health, and
yeah.
then it's up to us to kind of make a like kind of figure out which direction we want to head in with this.
There's a
Uh,
lot of good stuff on social media, I must say. Yeah. There's like
stuff.
research articles which are nicely summarized in infographics. There's other coaches we only read about, you know,
Yeah,
there on
yeah,
Instagram, sharing their knowledge, sharing exercises. And there's some really good stuff. But, those coaches are mostly known by people like us rather than actual people who want to improve. The people who actually want to get into health and fitness, look better, they follow, you know, Kim Kardashian and those kind of people. And then there's people like us who actually want to learn the art of coaching, who actually follow these guys. But I
yeah.
just feel that's like, it's just
But that's
big.
what you just mentioned is the link. It's the overlap between health and
Mm,
whether we want to accept it or not, health and beauty, right? That's what it
yeah,
is. One is like prescribing a beauty related lifestyle and one is prescribing a health related lifestyle and say, hey, do this, but there's an overlap between those two. Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, people do think that, hey, looking a certain way means you're healthy or you're fit. It's up to us to kind of inform them. And we have like a long road ahead of us and a lot of work probably, but yeah, it's up to us to kind of inform more people. And more people we inform
Hmm.
between what is potentially healthier or better for them versus not, uh,
Mm.
the more work we're doing, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
how did you get into coaching then?
uh, I think like I from a coaching standpoint, I got into the coaching journey full time only 4.5 years ago now, 4 to 5 years.
Mhm.
Been doing fitness pretty much, some form of
When I
fitness pretty
left.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, around the time you moved to the UK, right? Yes,
Yeah.
university, and that's when I got into coaching. Why I got into coaching is somewhere at the root level of it, I was searching and digging deeper on the educational aspect of it.
Hmm.
Like I wanted to find out for myself, and I wanted to kind of put it out there that hey, there's got to be a better way of finding health or fitness or your ways of doing things than taking a decade of just doing it, right? Like
Yeah.
started out maybe in high school at a bodybuilding gym. Trainer was trying to like give me 10 5 to 10 I don't even get started on it. But
Fat burners.
oh dear, oh man, uh, yeah, teenage kid, right? Amped up on different shit. No, I didn't end up taking any of it. Obviously, luckily, I was kind of just
Dude,
did the whole.
in my school, there used to be people that came up to me and they're like, dude, I've started taking fat burners, man. And I was just like, oh man, these guys.
Lot of caffeine for a kid.
Oh, kids. It's
Yeah,
just crazy.
but
So yeah, so
yeah, that was kind of scary, right? So misinformation at the end of the day. Uh, Also, from an education standpoint, it started out in the classroom itself. I was
hmm,
always curious. There was always questions I asked, larger questions in life, in philosophy, about life, about everything, right? At that point in time. And many times they weren't really answered in the classroom.
hmm,
They just weren't. So I tried to find answers elsewhere. I
I
found
feel that,
answers.
yeah.
I found answers in the basketball court through movement, uh, just participating in sports or at least pursuing to. And I wasn't the best athlete or anything at that point. I was not even close to it, right? But
Yeah.
it just helped me answer a lot of things. And
CrossFit answered a lot of things for me. That's my
unfortunately, at
thing.
my time, when I was in school, CrossFit wasn't here in India at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't here. Like a gym subscription cost like 2,200 rupees, and that was also expensive at the time,
Hmm.
or it perceptively expensive, right?
So for you,
Like,
basketball, those type of things were a way for you
yeah,
to
it
learn.
answered so much. Like the amount it connected with me, I felt so at one with myself. I didn't feel that way anywhere else. Then post that, I kind of moved into the whole. Uh,
How
I
did you
went to.
know you were so connected with yourself at that moment?
It was the one place where I could just chase the pursuit of it.
Okay.
I had this everlasting hunger and depth of knowledge and inquisitiveness about it, whether it was the sport or the craft or whatever it was.
Hmm.
And it didn't always translate into an experience on the court, though, in a competitive standpoint. But for myself, it was always about that.
Hmm.
And even at that point in time, the resources weren't what we have now. But yeah, so just pretty much grew up watching people play, watching the NBA, and that kind of inspired me. I used to read and watch comics and basketball. There were those also, animes. And that's where it started, wanting to get better at the sport. So I kind of started diving deep into what can I do from a performance standpoint. So there were jump programs, and there was something called Air Alert. That was my first experience with a fitness program in the ninth grade. I wanted to be able to touch the backboard. I was a short
Hmm.
kid at that, and just started doing that, right? Uh, I
Yeah.
did kind of get there, but I don't think it had anything to do with the jump aspect. I think I just got a lot taller. But yeah, just the whole entire athletic experience of it. Kind of think back to it, and I was like, hey, if I had eaten a certain way now, 12 to 14, if I'd eaten a certain way, lifted some weights, I would have probably gotten there
Yeah.
in like a lot sooner. But that wasn't there. The access to it wasn't there at the time. Started from there, then kind of went to university. I was in Bangalore,
What'd you do?
and I was studying business, right?
Oh.
I was studying business. So I went the whole, I'm going to study the business route. At the point, I couldn't really answer. I'm like, there were only these many options. You couldn't really choose sport or a field in sports, right? There was no education for that. Like, at least not a detailed.
Even if there was education, Vidur, it was not accepted. That's
Yeah,
my opinion. You know, it's like
yeah,
engineering, doctor, or MBA. Those
absolutely.
three are kind of like I
Yeah.
personally, don't want to say anything, but like my
It,
brother, he went for an engineering degree and he was like, yeah, go ahead. And then me, sports science. Oh, okay. Just need to think about it. Do we want to send him abroad?
I think it became evident really early with what you're saying, though, because like the acceptance as far as wanting to play or wanting to pursue that, or the amount of effort, work, or like the effort, just the chase of it that went into it, was never really
Hmm.
acknowledged or encouraged as much as the effort in a classroom. Unfortunately for me, the second didn't quite exist because I didn't really kind of feel inquisitive enough. Like it just wasn't engaging for me at that point in time.
Hmm.
Uh, so kind of started out there. Then in university, I went to a conventional gym. I had a Gold's gym. I don't have to thank my trainers there though. They did help me a certain bit, fair bit. Uh, they helped me get my first whey protein supplement a lot later. Yeah, yeah. I was at what? I was getting 40 grams of protein a day at that point in time. Probably too little. That was the starting point, right? And started from there, and then kind of started doing body weight exercises over there for the first time.
In Gold's
Finally, in
Gym,
college,
when you had so much weights to play with, you were doing body
right, I had
weights.
so much resistance, and I was just doing push-ups and I was doing pull-ups, and I kind of thanked them for it at that point in time. That lat pull-down machine and that assisted chin-up
Yeah.
machine, and I did all that shit because I remember when the first time I came to CrossFit, I already had 10 strict pull-ups. They were
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, it was that shit. That should help.
Yeah.
The machines are not bad. It's just how you execute them.
Mm.
Kind of this whole, then after that, I had my first CrossFit experience. I was back a summer from university. My brother was doing CrossFit at the time. And then, as you know, CrossFit Live Performance at that point in time had
Yeah.
just opened out. I started CrossFit there. Was familiar with the
Mm.
people there who started it. They were kind of seniors in school. Really had a ball. The only thing I could think about is kind of going back to CrossFit every other day. And
Yeah.
kind of started from there, right? It was like, wow, this is
But
just
what did you work? What were you doing for work when you
so
started
this was I
CrossFit?
was still in university though. And then at university, when I went back in my final year, I did not have access to CrossFit over there. It was
Mm.
really far away. I did end up going a couple of days a week for about a month, but I had to walk 45 minutes every day to get there. I did it. I did it for about a month. It just wasn't fitting my. It just wasn't fitting my
Schedule.
time. Yeah, I couldn't do it just with the work and the homework, and then with other responsibilities. I just couldn't fit it in. But I tried to, and I told the first rule of being in CrossFit was telling everyone you did CrossFit. So I kind of told everyone like, "Hey, you gotta go
I
to
do
CrossFit."
CrossFit.
Yeah, I do CrossFit. You gotta do CrossFit. I took a bunch of friends with me also once, and it was nice. But yeah, I started there, came back, uh, graduated business, was kind of, I had a lot of ambitious, like really responsible, ambitious friends. And in college, university, I was totally different, right? I was pursuing education, academics, extracurricular. Uh, there was that curiosity, the element, and the whole
Mm.
concept of starting off fresh, right? So I really went at it and made the most of it. So yeah, very different student in high school or school versus university.
Yeah. So what did
And
CrossFit do?
it just kind of sparked that fire or fueled that fire of like the whole process of self improvement. For the first time,
Okay.
I could find it in a format where you could channel that in a setting of physical movement,
Hmm.
right? So it started out there. There were early indications for sure. Like, okay, this is, I could only think about it.
Yeah.
Like, my friends would be meeting and I would think about it. I would think about what will it take to maybe get a muscle up, or when will I get to XYZ number of these things. And it wasn't about the
Hmm.
speed of it or I want to get to it so fast. It was just about how to get there.
Yeah.
So I
And
started asking,
one thing about
yeah,
CrossFit I really liked is even though the methodology, now that I'm more knowledgeable, I kind of disagree with the methodology.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the thing I like about CrossFit is it actually sparks your curiosity to know the technical elements of every movement,
that,
to know the
absolutely
cues. You know,
right.
like when I went to uni, I knew cues. I knew technically how to do every single exercise my lecturers were talking about, and my classmates didn't know anything, and I was just there like, okay, CrossFit has taught me so much
That I can
about
apply,
how to execute, how to do things properly. And
which is
yeah, so
what they,
it, yeah.
yeah, they do an amazing job of like that aspect of it, right? The execution
Mm,
aspect of it. Like from a coaching standpoint in a group fitness model, I feel like they are probably at least up there with as far as teaching execution can go. At the end of the
mm,
day, the actual execution comes down to the coach and their practice and their ability and their
good
awareness. But
coaches.
yeah, but yeah, it definitely does that. So it kind of fueled that. Uh, I did come back. I started out. I was really growing up. I was pretty passionate about food. I love food, not just eating it, but just food, like curiosity. I grew up watching like travel and living and everything about food. Wasn't convinced on pursuing a career in hospitality though. Just wasn't. Like
Oh,
because
you, yeah.
I felt that I had this fire, but it had to be from the best. Maybe it was my own, and if I wanted to go to school like Cordon Bleu or something, I just couldn't pay for it. You just couldn't do it.
Mm.
It
I
just
didn't
wasn't.
know that about you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
wanted to become a chef when I was until I joined CrossFit, which changed my career
and
paths. But I want,
that did
yeah.
help me to a huge extent because I was already in, like the whole concept of being initiated with my food was already there. It's just that the understanding of what and how much of it was missing at that point in time, which it educated me a little bit at least, if I won't say all.
Mm,
So it started there, and I started out with a food technology or logistics startup in working in Delhi NCR. I was back home by then, where my parents were staying, and that was an interesting experience actually. Straight out of college, worked with upwards of 400 to 500 delivery uh, personnel and yeah, executives
damn.
managing them, and they come from very different backgrounds. So living and growing among them, literally.
Hmm.
with every aspect of it. Moved out
That's
from
good.
there about a year and a half into it. CrossFit was still an anchor for me, right? Like I loved it.
Hmm.
It was just, it was my time and I was doing it, and that was, at least I was able to do something for myself. Moved to Bangalore for about 2 to 3 months with another food tech startup, and then they shipped me off to the Delhi NCR office again because I had better awareness or understanding of the region. And a year and a half or 2 years into it, this point of time, I worked a lot by myself. I was alone. So I spent literally like working in that space alone, physically also alone. And there were people around me, but in the office part of it, it was alone, right? I was doing this
Hmm.
alone. That got me thinking a lot at that point in time. Like, what, why, where is this going? Where is this headed? Wasn't in the best frame of mind at that point in time. Uh, but I was glad that experience came by because it helped me ask a lot of questions very early on.
Yeah.
And yeah, 2 years into it, there were days where I would come back and I would be like, this is not working. I was losing it. Like I was mentally burnt out. Slowly started seeing a depletion or pulling out of socializing with people also. Uh, and I was like, hey, this has got to change. Did try to interact with my family about it, but uh, that, like, at the end of the day, the truth is that you have to kind of go through it yourself. You don't, they can only do so much. They can only kind of help you so much or recommend so much because they don't know what you're experiencing, what you're feeling.
Damn.
Yeah.
I'm really connecting with you right now. So yeah, just go on.
So kind of went into my shell there, and then the only place that I would find solace was during training.
Training.
And uh, and then eventually, like 2 years into the space, 2 years into this particular job that I did, uh, I just, there was a switch. It's like people around me encouraged me at the time. Few people encouraged, hey, why don't you start? Why don't you think about starting coaching? It was just like an initiator, small. I barely needed it. And I was like, okay, this is, I'm going to do this. So for the next 4, 5 months after that, I kind of did the whole wake up in the morning at 4 a.m., intern till like 7:30, 8 a.m., then go to work, do the day job, come back at 7 p.m., 6:30, 7 p.m., do my own training between 7:30 to 9:30 p.m.,
Hmm.
and then
Were
rinse
you
wash.
interning at CrossFit?
No, not at that point in time. I was interning with an outdoor fitness company at that point.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
And
Yeah.
right. And then I kind of did that for a while. Then I was like, okay, this is unsustainable. And it was just stretching me, right? Stretching me beyond, stretched me
Mentally
beyond.
fatiguing, man. Yeah.
But the truth is, it was, I didn't find it mentally fatiguing. I found it liberating because whatever mental fatigue I had to accumulate, I had already accumulated at my work the past 2 years.
Hmm.
So my body was stretched beyond means, but I was feeling more liberated than I ever did in many ways. And then when I was
Wow.
ready, I kind of just made the switch full time. Then for a year, I worked 2 jobs even at the time with a close friend working in a cafe in the hospitality space. But I was coaching part time at the time, and somewhere like it just kind of it just moved in the direction of that also, and I just wanted to move into coaching full time. Those answers came gradually.
Hmm.
uh, my connection to food actually kind of helped me uh, with the nutritional aspect of things when I kind of dove deeper into coaching later on, and still continues to help. But I
So you knew
saw,
you're doing it.
yeah, because I saw two things that I recognized was that my hunger for learning about food, about like creating food was dying, right? It was slowly kind of wearing out. But my hunger for education about movement, about self improvement, and about how to communicate it to people, how to get people to a point was not like getting quenched. I just kept
Okay.
going back for more and more and more.
Okay.
And that's where I knew like, okay, this is where we want to head. And when
So
it's a bit, yeah, that's
what have
where
you
it
used to boost this learning?
what have I used to boost this learning,
Yeah.
right? So I think the first part of it has to be like completely environmental, like with respect to the people that you surround yourself with. That has a big part of it,
Hmm.
at least initiator. And then you kind of go into the direction of who you are as a person. So for me, the boosting came through, I'm not like on practical hours, just hours and hours of coaching. I think in the initial phases, what anyone who's getting into the space of movement or coaching or working with
Hmm.
people, like the more you do, right, the lesser it is. You could be doing more and it's probably not enough in the initial phase. Like you could just be doing more and more of coaching hours. You can just get in a lot more of coaching hours than you give yourself credit for. In the later stages, once you kind of are in that space, then you probably kind of need to start looking at the educational aspect of it also. Like start moving into the direction of pursuing education. Because the truth is, like, in order to kind of internalize all the education that you end up learning, let's say you learn something, uh, you need to first kind of just have gone through enough from a visualizing standpoint or a coaching standpoint to recognize what's actually happening. Because otherwise, you're
Yes.
just gathering like a lot of theoretical knowledge and the practical standpoint, there's no connect, right? And when there's no connect, it's really difficult to make sense of it.
Hmm.
The human body is so complex, and you could
Yeah.
study more
The
and
way
more about.
the way I look at it, like the art of coaching, first of all, it comes down to communication. If you can't talk to a person, doesn't matter if you have knowledge, if you have skills in coaching, you're doomed.
Yeah, and then within that also, like everybody will have their own uh, niche, right? Some people might be better with working with the general population. Some people might be better
Hmm.
suited for working with athletes, and the two mindsets are very different. There might be carryover in some principles, but just some principles, but like the population sets are very different working with an athlete and working with a
Yes, yes.
gen pop. And you kind of need to figure out which you're better at, because you'll definitely be better at one. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
you might be better at one for sure. Like you might be the best coach in the world, but you will probably still be better at one of them than the other. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? It's relative. And then it comes down to like working group was working versus working individual. So I feel like that was really important. You kind of need the group aspect for a macro vision of how fitness is happening and just getting okay what's going on, like how to run. That kind of that teaches you how to run a class, right? It teaches you how to take control of a class. Can you
Hmm.
command it? Can you
Yo. Yo, you disappeared, my friend.
That one was totally on me. I don't know what happened there, but the internet just collapsed. That's part of it.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So yeah, so we're talking about individual and then coaching.
Yeah, so
Commanding.
the
That's
whole
where.
macro aspect of it, to actually, can you run a class? Are you okay with people? Are you how good at it? So to get you better at
Mm,
that, right? The whole I concept of coaching, and then you kind of move deeper into the individual aspect of it. That's kind of the route I took personally, and I prefer it. And just working with individuals,
yeah.
and you just realize people could be doing the same things, but they move so differently. And then you ask yourselves deeper level questions, right? Is everybody built the same? If they're not built the same, can they do the same forms of training?
Mm,
And the answer, more often than not, is probably not. Uh, yes to some extent, no to some extent, right? So it
yeah.
just comes. So from
But
an education, yeah,
you can just attack those little behaviors and
yeah.
habits better. Also, understand the human at a deeper level than just a group.
Right, like
That's
because you're knowing your clientele even deeper at one step
mm,
more, maybe two steps more. You don't know their
yeah.
movement, life. You understand a lot of things better. uh,
Mm,
so if you have like a group of 10 people coming in, you know that about each one of them because you spent that time with them. That's amazing, right? That's on you. You're doing a great job. But if that's not possible, then you do need to consider, okay, what can I do to know my client more? uh,
okay.
it comes down to the whole thing, right? Like 10 people walk into a class, they're doing different jobs. One's an investment banker, one's probably a teacher, one's probably a stay-at-home parent. And uh, can they all, even though you might scale movements to their capabilities, uh, one thing that we're not kind of factoring in is their stress bucket,
Okay.
right? And how each one is like, you don't know what they're going through emotionally, mentally, physically, and you truly don't know. But I guess, like, at not guess, at an individual level, it's you'll have more clarity on that.
Mm,
That said, I also understand that like a lot of reasons why people don't choose the individual route is because it ends up becoming a little costlier for them from a financial standpoint. But if I had to prescribe a way for people to train, it would always be if you can get access to working in some capacity, some capability with an individual coach who knows, who understands you, then that is a good place to be in.
mm,
You could probably end up uh, diving into group fitness every now and then, but understand that like there'll be a couple of differences that are there which may not be addressed. Uh,
okay. Yeah.
so mix and match of both. Yeah, really, maybe that could be one way of doing things. So that is as
Yeah.
far as education is concerned. Let's see, the CrossFit seminars, level one, level two. Level two was actually a life-changing experience for me. The level two I went for, they added a testing component for the first time. I think everybody who'd done it before me they didn't have the testing component. So it took me by surprise. It actually took me like two tries to get it. And then uh, uh, life changing from a coaching standpoint, because I was a much younger coach who went into that seminar with people around me knowing a lot more. And when I came out of it, it just fueled me different, right? Like I just wanted to know more and more and more, learn more and more and more. So
Mm,
life changing experience from that standpoint. And then post that, nutrition, a lot of people were kind of like we discussed the whole Indian diet dilemma earlier. So a lot of big part of the clientele was struggling with nutritional aspect of it, right? So educate myself a little bit more on the nutrition aspect. So I went into precision nutrition, which gave me
mm.
quite a bit of clarity. Their book is amazing. Their content is amazing.
Yep.
You could probably not know every time you go back to it, you'll probably learn more things. And that kind of goes, right? You kind of just clear your craft even more. And as of this year, post pandemic, actually just at the beginning of the pandemic, uh, the Opex CCP,
Mm.
which has been by far the most life changing or transformative experience from a coaching standpoint. Uh, just the Opex CCP, uh, it's an American coaching certificate program, and it works on the entire concept of individualization to the core, right? And just everything, right? Everything about individuals. And it
Okay.
equips you really well with working with the 97% of the crowd. Maybe not athletes, maybe not pro athletes at that level. Uh, but yeah, it just gives you a lot more context about how things could be, the science of it, the behavioral aspect of it, what you can be doing, and just the practice of coaching, right? How can you set up a better infrastructure for your clients to get the best out of your coaching principles or practices? So, CCP by itself, they kind of go into the whole the coach, the client, the professional aspect of it. Those are the three elements they dig really deep on, which I feel is a really important aspect of it because uh, you can be a great coach with a lot of knowledge, but you have to be good with the client. You have to understand your client, which you spoke about. You can be amazing with your client and a great coach, but you have to learn how to be a professional uh, with people, right?
Okay.
So different parameters of that aspect of it. It teaches you a lot.
So
So
what
yeah,
type of coach are you?
what type of coach am I? In what capacity?
Um, what is your niche? What type of people do you like working with? What do you like? I know it's individualistic, but what do you like prescribing to people? What do you like work? What's your go-to like?
I
For
love
example,
working. I love working with like the general population aspect of it. People. So I love working with lifestyle clients. People who are probably working. I don't know, banking jobs, or people who are probably working running tech startups, or they might be
hmm,
working at test jobs. Some of them might have had past experiences with uh, semi-professional sports. Some of them might come with no background in it. So
okay,
just people from everyday life, right? And just helping them get better, just helping them get better from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, from a nutrition standpoint, behavioral standpoint, and just kind of working along those lines of it and what they need
okay,
from a resistance and training standpoint. So working with people in person, literally, and then during COVID times, it's a lot of working with people remotely,
hmm.
which is something I personally feel uh, I've been better equipped with the CCP education for sure, right?
And how are you doing it remotely? Are you taking them through a whole training session, 60 minutes? How are you doing it?
There are two different ways you can go about it. You can either go through the whole, okay, let me do one-to-one training for you where you need my eye on you throughout, or there could be the whole remote individual ID program, right? The remote individual design program, which is you're working out at your own time or you're training at your own time. We have parameters in place to check whether you're getting in everything done as far as your behaviors and your training is concerned. And then we meet once a month, or maybe sometimes bi-monthly or by once in 2 weeks to kind of figure out where you're currently at and which direction we're headed in. Because that FaceTime part of it is really important. That's the personal equation with that person,
Okay.
right? But that's the only point of FaceTime that you end up getting. And as far as coaching movement is concerned, this is better for individuals who have at least a basic understanding of movement or have trained a little bit on
Uh,
their own. And then when you look at like absolute beginners and they want to train in a remote setting, right? Like they want to work with you in an individual setting, the personal training route is the better option for those people, even though in the moment it's more time consuming for both, right?
Mm,
And then probably get them in the direction of, okay, let's get you a little more reliable on yourself, get them to do a few simpler things on their own eventually.
yeah. And
Long term,
how have you built this little um name for yourself in the coaching business, in the industry?
I actually don't think I have yet. I feel like there's still a long road ahead. I am like, I thank my stars and I'm fortunate enough for the clientele that I work with. But uh, big part of it have been, I've worked with a bunch of different coaching companies, right? Like, so big part of it has been either people who have been part of my coaching practice previously at some place, or are part of the coaching community that I'm part of right now, which is the gym or the physical facility that I work with, or the coaching business that I work with. So it's a
Mm,
mix and match, people from all walks of life. And then there are obviously there are occasional people who reach out to you directly for training. Uh,
okay.
but yeah, that's the sink of it.
Yeah. So what's your advice to people who are getting out there? They're new, they're they're learning, they have good knowledge, but I do feel that like learning, coaching, the art is just 50% of the puzzle. The next 50%, I think it's, which is the hardest, is actually getting clients, which
The
is
business aspect of it,
painful.
right?
Hmm?
Yeah. Business aspect of it is
Yeah,
like, can be a larger problem to solve for a lot of coaches, especially if you're not someone who's good at it. So in that case or that scenario, I think one of the better ways to do it always is to number one, if you're setting out, you need to figure out, are you working as uh, a micro entrepreneur, or you're running a gym, or you want to run a fitness facility. Please do your
mm,
thorough understanding of what you're planning to do, right? It's kind of important to get some understanding on it, at least have an idea, because understand that like running a gym is going to be very different from trying to build like a practice of
yeah,
clients online or something like that. The two are very different businesses. Uh, as far as if I have to give future coaches or maybe upcoming coaches uh, one word of advice, mm, I think you should choose a really good mentor, right?
okay,
You should find a really good mentor and invest in it. And if you can't find a mentor just through your network, I think I've been fortunate enough to work with some amazing or have access to some amazing coaches around me, at least in my geography. Again, relative, right? But if you don't have access to that, you should probably, the second best step would be looking at mentorship or coaches abroad or online and invest in it, even if it feels a little out of your financial reach initially. In the long run, it's going to solve a lot of questions that you might have asked yourself, uh,
okay,
and a lot of answers very soon. So have someone who's been through it. Like at the end of the day, the experience part of it never goes away. So if there's someone who's sharing experience or valuable principles with you, you don't have to kind of mimic them or copy them or take everything for what they say, but you can definitely kind of derive what's best out of it for yourself and
yeah.
build up from there.
I mean,
So
at the
that's
end of the day, you have to find
your own way of
your
doing it.
coaching style. Yeah, your own way of doing it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that'll only come with time, I feel. It takes time to build, to get to know who you are, how you like talking, how you like coaching. Um, so yeah, I think it's
it's kind of like, it's also like, one thing I'd like to add is that you will not know everything right from the beginning. So it's really important to
mm,
understand at all walks of life is that you're not going to know it all, and you'll probably might have to pivot at any point. You might be out of coaching as a practice, you might have to pivot your business. So don't go in with trying to say, okay, I need to know everything. It's more like, okay, what can I do with what I have right now? And a lot of people
Mm.
are really good at that. Like they probably do not have, they may not have access to the education aspect of it, but they get really good at what they do know and they make the most of it. And like hats
Yeah.
off to those people. Like brilliant
Yeah.
on them. So figuring that piece out is really important for yourself. That
Okay.
hey, don't hold yourself down to, oh, I will do more when I know more. That
Yeah.
happens to me as well sometimes. But
Okay.
do the best you can with what you have right now.
Yeah. And how do you
And
deal with the uncertainty of a client can take off anytime? I've built a business around 10 clients. If 5 of them leave, I can't pay my rent. How do you build?
I think a big part of that also comes down to educating yourself with. A lot of it is about financial education, right? And putting practices and systems in place.
Hmm.
Uh, the learning around that, okay, 5 clients left, yes, it's probably a hit. You need to probably figure out why those 5 clients left, because there are bigger
Yeah.
questions there. And solve for those, answer those. Because if you end up learning from those and end up figuring that out, then the next time you do it, they'll probably not leave. And then you're building yourself a more long-term practice.
Hmm.
That is
Hmm.
the uncertainty of life and everything, right? Like you could be on a bike tomorrow outside and you'd be riding a bike and you get hit and you don't know, you might lose an arm, you might lose a leg, you might lose your life. And the
Yeah.
chances are there. You got to dive in there with your chances. You could be at a very stable job, which you think is stable, right? And tomorrow you find out that, hey, you're being laid off because it's just restructuring, and they laid you off. You have
Yeah.
bills to pay. And
Okay.
that uncertainty is there. But for that, I feel like what can really help is number one, kind of see where that uncertainty is coming from, because maybe the root cause of it is something totally else. And
Hmm.
number two, maybe build yourself, or like get more well versed with literature on financial education. Kind of see, okay,
Yeah.
what can I do?
What do you
Kind of,
mean by that? What?
right. So think of it this way. Mm, at any point of time, let's say your expenses, and this is not financial advice for anyone, you need not take it. The general principle is that do you have at least 6 months or up to a year of your living expenses in place? And before
Like
you
in
start,
savings?
yeah, before you start paying bills, you got to
Okay.
answer those questions and figure your way out to that. Those should be your goals.
Hmm.
That's a good place to begin because, hey, let's take that uncertainty out the best we can and then do the best we. Let's answer those
Yeah.
questions. You can't be like, okay, I have 10 clients, I live uh, hand to mouth right now, there are no savings. Then you probably need to check what you're doing wrong. You're either in a
Hmm.
space which is not scalable enough for you to get enough clients, or you're not getting outlet of you're not getting enough clients to onboard, or you're probably in a model where you're undercharging, right? That is another issue that's there, right? Like there are a lot of people who are offering very different services, and price points end up becoming a different issue in the space we're in. So it's really important to have that conversation with your potential clientele and help them understand what you really bring to the table. Uh,
Wow.
have an honest conversation about that. As far as, mm, let's see, what else is missing? What else could you? I think it's I think it's really good to have an idea on uh, or a dialogue with the client on seeing what's right or what's not working for them.
Yeah. Okay.
far as the business element aspect of it is concerned. You need to know.
Yeah, you need to build a relationship, a full, healthy relationship with a client. It's like a friend, a friend, a best friend will be there for life. And if you can build a relationship based like that, you've got someone who's by your side, who you're helping, they're helping you
Yeah.
throughout,
And then there still has to be a certain element of professionalism.
Hmm.
You still got to have systems in place and you still got to be consistent in what you do. And just because they're your best friend now, let's say you're writing training programs, it can't be a Wednesday morning and they're due for a training on Tuesday and it's Wednesday morning and you start sending them a training program.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it up right now. Give me 2 minutes. Or it could be an online class and you show up
You
late and
missed it.
you apologize for it, right?
Yeah.
You apologize, let them understand, hey, I know
So
you're okay with it, but it was my mistake. Yeah.
yeah, but for you, it's very important to be professional, to keep your services up, even if you've been with this person for 3 years.
It has to be like and I'm getting better at it with time. I'm only learning.
Yeah.
And the
So what are
more
your
I'm learning,
tips?
it's really important to do that.
Yeah. And what are your
Like
tips for that?
is that don't try to create like the perfect system in place right from the beginning. Because if one thing that my previous backgrounds in working in logistics or operations taught me is
Hmm.
that like this way or this flow of operations will evolve as the size of the business changes.
Okay.
You can't be like, oh, I'm going to deliver the perfect platform. It's going to be absolutely perfect. Everybody's going to get everything perfect. That's not going to happen. If you're kind of scared to make mistakes with respect to that, then you're probably going to end up not getting much done. So it will evolve as you evolve as a coach, right? Like, okay,
Hmm.
initially you had one client and you were giving them 100%. Now you have three clients. Your time is going to get divided. You'll
Hmm.
have to understand how you kind of make sure that you're consistent in your service so that your first client doesn't feel, hey, he's not giving me enough time or she's not giving me enough time anymore.
So
And
time management is very important.
I think it's really like it's again comes down. It's just the more I'm learning on it, and I'm was it the I wouldn't say I'm a 10 on 10 as far as being organized is concerned, but I realize that I do understand that like being in the space of being a professional coach, working your way up to a 7 or 8 is definitely going to have merits
Hmm.
in terms of being organized. So if you can like get as organized about your day as possible as a person, you're going to end up doing uh, better than you did before. Your service
Yeah.
ends up becoming more consistent,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
that's just there. Like that, this is the business aspect of it, right? And then
Hmm.
geography, and then market, and then you have to figure out how you're getting more people. But think of it this way: like, let's say you're a coach, and someone referred me to you, and I came and started working with you. Who would you go out to would you rather go out to 10 other people outside of your network looking for clientele, or would you first reach out to me, who's already bought into your clientele or your way of coaching? When you're looking for clients, let's say you're looking for
Hmm.
clients or people to train, isn't it? Let's say you get that first client. That first client is the hardest one to get.
Yeah.
And through that first client, you've now coached them for maybe months.
Hmm.
Ask them to give you referrals if they believe in your work, which they do, because they're here.
Yeah.
Ask them to connect you to people.
Yeah.
And tapping your current network of people is going to be one of the most important steps in figuring out your clientele. And then
Hmm.
worry about the whole growth span of it. Great if you have 100,000 people or 200,000 people that are there at the tap of your finger. That's great. But
Yeah.
understand that like at any given point of time, if you're working alone or by yourself, you could probably only work with 20, maybe 30, maybe 40, maybe 50, maybe 10, maybe 5 people.
Yeah, it's
Depends.
quite hard.
Coaches, it's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
depends if it's small group, personal. There's a lot of factors into it. But yeah, I understand.
yeah. So
Cool.
that's
I've got a
yeah.
few quick
More.
fire round questions for you.
Give me a second. I'm gonna switch on the light.
Haha.
Oh,
There we
visible.
go. Yes.
It's got dark visible.
Cool. Some quick fire round questions, Vidur.
Let's go.
Cool. So what's one thing you wish you had known when you began?
Began like in the space of coaching.
Yeah.
That like uncertainty is a part of it no matter what you do.
Any career.
Right?
Got it.
It's a part of it.
Okay. Good. What is the one common myth about your profession or field that you want to debunk? I've got so many.
The one, this is hard to pick, right?
It's hard to pick.
Yeah. What would yours be?
Hmm?
What would yours be? You've been doing this for some time now as well. So what would you pick?
One of the myths about, I think, the sports industry is that, you know, us coaches are emotionally humans also. And I feel a lot of people look up to us and feel they're strong, they have life sorted out. I know this is deep, but I know coaches that are going through so much in life, but whenever a
Yeah.
client shows up, they're always strong. And the client doesn't ask them, oh, what's going on? Are you fine? So I feel like a lot of people think like coaches are just doing well
Robots.
all the time, robots. So I feel that we are humans, we are emotional, and we sometimes also need a client to ask us how we're doing rather than it being one-sided.
That's a good point. So myth or one thing that I would recommend people do is that coaches need coaches.
Yes.
Coaches need coaches. That's one thing that everybody out there who's a coach, if you're a coach, then go hire another coach as well. Not only are you providing them work, you're also solidifying your belief and thought process that people deserve a coach or
Yeah.
their life is better with a coach. So coaches need coaches. Everybody can do with a coach.
Yeah. But there's so many myths out there. Like if you eat a burger, you're going to become fat in a week.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Those
work like
myths are
that.
that's just like an endless rabbit hole. That's
Yeah.
just like we go on and on about those.
Yeah.
Coaching is a tough space to be in.
So what's your biggest failure and what did you learn from it being a coach?
Biggest failure.
Being too soft.
I feel like there's no one biggest. I feel like they just keep on coming in some aspect or the other, and you learn from them or you move forward from them. So there's no really true one big failure that I would pinpoint on, at least not yet.
Yeah, not one.
Yeah, not one.
Yeah.
But one thing I would try to recognize, and this was for me personally, was that I am personally not here to be an athlete. I am personally here to be a coach first. So
Okay.
recognizing that was really important.
Do you think there can be a balance?
To some extent, but at the end of the day, in the longer span of, if you look at time management, maybe for a person who's really, really organized, but if you just look at, like, if you have the time management aspect of it. You know what it takes to be a professional athlete,
Hmm.
right? The chances are if that there is someone who's giving that much time to being a coach, they're putting in more hours as a coach. So they're going to get better at the craft of coaching.
Yeah. But clients would value the athlete more than a person who's just doing being a coach.
Yeah, clients might value the athlete more is because of maybe they perform a certain way or they look
Success.
a certain way or because they have stature. But do they want success as an athlete or do they want success in terms of health? That again comes down to that question. Because clients are not
Hmm.
athletes. No one told them that, right? No
Yeah.
one told them you're not probably going to go to the CrossFit Games or you're not probably going to go run
Yeah.
100 meters at the Olympics. So,
Yeah. And another thing to the people listening, okay? An athlete coach probably only has one way of training. He does not understand other ways of training. What made him successful will not make you successful.
yeah,
Simple.
it's like I think from a coaching standpoint, it's very easy, and this is one of the failures that I would say it is one of the failures. It's like kind of having blinders on, is
Hmm.
uh, letting your biases drip into your clients to some extent,
Okay. What
right?
do you mean by that?
Let's say you train as an athlete, or let's say you train as a swimmer or endurance runner, right? So of course you're
Hmm.
learning more and more about the realm of endurance, but that's not
Yeah.
necessarily that your client needs endurance. Maybe they're coming to you for very different purposes.
Correct. Correct.
You can get them fitter, maybe performing endurance, right? Get
Hmm.
them fitter in the realm of endurance, but it's not necessarily the only way of doing it. So,
Yeah.
but more recognize that hey, you're not your client is not you, and it's easy. It happens to everyone. We all have our blinders. That's fine.
Correct.
But to be able to recognize and look past that, it really helps connect at a deeper level with the client. It solidifies that relationship between a client and you.
Hmm. Good. 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 What's the best resource that has helped you along the way?
Apart from people, I think I've got to like smash the hell out of the table with as far as people are concerned. People I work with now, people in my personal life,
Hmm.
people I've had the experience of coming across. Not so nice people also I've had the experience of coming across. They also taught me a bunch of shit. But apart from that, it is education, right? Like definitely
Yeah.
the strongest resource. If you ask me, okay, pinpoint one specific uh,
People.
education, yeah, like a module or something, then to get me started, and to fall in love with fitness again or health again, initially, CrossFit, and in current stage with a more experience or involved approach on fitness, definitely Opex.
Hmm. If I gave you three options, people, education, or okay, people or education, what would you choose as the best resource going forward if you could only choose one?
People,
Yes. Okay.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, people,
Take it like that.
people.
Yeah. Let's say you're this amazing collegiate level at coach, like a football coach or something, right? And you've got all these years of experience, right? I
Yeah,
I can learn from you.
yeah,
Right? Learn that from you. If I have more people around it, that's automatically kind of exposing me to more, so I can learn more from
yeah.
those people or their
People,
experiences.
people make it fun. People make it fun.
People make it human.
Yeah, people make it human, and us humans just want to connect. That's it, you know. That's life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Learn
Yeah.
more
So
from and learn most from your clients. I learn more from them than they will ever learn from me.
amazing. If you could step into my shoes right now, what would a question you would ask yourself? What question would you ask yourself that I didn't, basically?
When am I going to run my next 100?
100 kilometers.
Yeah.
When are you going to run your 100 kilometers?
Maybe for you, from your standpoint, like when are you going to run your next 100? You're going to run this one right now, and are you going to repeat it again?
I mean, maybe, but this question is for you. What question should I have asked you?
You could have asked me, I don't know, on a lighter note, I guess, when do we get to like go to a different country at some point of time, or kind of engage with more people?
Yeah.
I've worked with clients the last couple of months remotely for most part of it. So it's been a slightly challenging time from that standpoint. Understanding that like as coaches or being in the space of working with people, like it's more about connections and human connections and human relations. I think it's just been a very, very different setting. And while the remote model is great and you can do a lot in it, provided you have the right tools for it, I miss the human connection bit of it has to come back. So it can't all be
Nothing beats that. Yeah, nothing beats human connection.
Yeah. So if you had to ask me a question that you missed out right now is, what is it that you miss most right now? I would say it's the human connection part of it.
Yeah, amazing. Where can our listeners connect with you, Mr. Vidur?
They can connect with me on my Instagram handle.
I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, Vidur Gupta 07. Should probably come up with Coach Vidur Gupta 07 or something like that. Right now it's just Vidur Gupta 07. And my email address, if you want to write to me, if you have my phone number and you want to message me, you can message me, you can call me. This works. Message me before you call me.
Amazing. I mean, thank you, Vidur, for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Those of you like who know our listeners, like Philippe, one of the youngest and the most inspiring people that I've come across in the realm of like health or fitness, pretty much seen you through it right from the beginning. So
yeah.
And please do go and on this point, like please do go and check out the cause to which he's running 100 kilometers, right? 100
Description.
kilometers.
Yes.
Please go support Philippe on this endeavor. It's for a good cause. And I think he's going to do a brilliant job. We look forward to kind of seeing that also.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Vidur.
Thanks, Phil. See you soon. Hopefully see you soon in person.